Please help me to reach 1,000 subscribers. It was a Friday night, one of those still, heavy evenings when it feels like the whole world is quietly waiting for something. She sat across from me at the dinner table, the faint tapping of cutlery the only sound in the room. Nothing unusual, nothing dramatic. And yet, something was deeply, undeniably wrong. I couldn't explain it at the time, but my chest tightened with the kind of instinct you don't ignore. The air between us felt thin, fragile, like the frayed end of a rope that had been pulled too many times. She laughed at something on her phone, a laugh that sounded forced, hollow, like she was performing for an audience I couldn't see. She didn't realize I was watching her, but I saw everything. The way her fingers hovered on the screen just a little too long. The quick, nervous glance upward as if checking whether I'd noticed. That uneasy flutter in my stomach started to rise, but I shoved it down. I told myself I was imagining things. She was always on her phone, busy with work, at least that's what she always said. But that night, the silence grew thick enough to choke on. Something in me quietly broke. I didn't make a scene. I didn't demand answers. I didn't shout or accuse. I simply walked away. By the next morning I had filed for divorce. No spectacle, no dramatic confrontation. Just paperwork, signatures, and silence. I moved to a different city, erased her number, wiped her from my world. And for the first time in years I felt like I could breathe without effort. I didn't need an explanation. I didn't need to hear excuses. The moment I stumbled across that message, everything snapped into place. She chose her path. So I chose mine. The beginning was rough. The bed felt too big. The nights too quiet. I caught myself missing her even when I didn't want to. After all, she was the woman I had centered my life around, the woman I believed in with everything I had. But with time the emptiness slowly grew lighter, like fog lifting after a long storm. A year slipped by. A full year of silence. Life became simple, steady, almost peaceful. Work kept me busy. I started picking up hobbies I had long abandoned. I rediscovered pieces of myself I had lost somewhere in the years we were together. The pain dulled, and she became nothing more than a distant echo. Then one evening, everything shifted. I was walking toward my building when I saw her standing there. She looked smaller than I remembered, like the world had worn her down. Her shoulders sagged, and her eyes I once knew better than my own, were clouded with something I had never seen in them before, remorse. "Hi," she whispered, her voice trembling. "I've been looking for you." For a moment, I wondered if she even existed or if grief had conjured her out of thin air. She wasn't supposed to be here. I had finally moved forward. Or at least I believed I had. She stood on the sidewalk, waiting for a response I didn't know how to give. I said nothing. I just stared, trying to make sense of the moment. "I need to talk," she said softly. "Please." I wanted to turn around. Wanted to walk past her like she was a stranger. Wanted to leave her buried in the past where she belonged. But a small, stubborn part of me, the part that once loved her deeply enough to break, stopped me. We ended up in a small cafe nearby, a place I used to take her when life was kinder. This time, the room felt unfamiliar, like we were two people who no longer belonged in the same chapter. She looked exhausted, like a person carrying the weight of her own decisions. "I messed up," she began, her voice barely audible. "I thought I could have everything. I thought I could chase two lives at once. But I was so wrong." I let her speak. I didn't interrupt. I wanted her to sit with her own truth, to feel the gravity of the choices she had made. "I thought I could manage both worlds," she continued. "But I ended up destroying everything. I lost you." Her eyes glistened with tears. I recognized regret. I recognized sorrow. But layered beneath it I saw fear. Fear of realizing she had burned a bridge that could never be rebuilt. "I don't expect forgiveness," she whispered. "But I miss you. I miss what we had." For a brief second I felt a pull, a familiar tug toward the past. But it faded. Because deep down I already knew the answer. "Why now?" I asked calmly. "Why come back after all this time?" She hesitated, fingers tightening around her cup. "Because the life I left you for, it fell apart. It wasn't what I thought it would be. And only then did I understand what I walked away from. I thought I could replace what we had. I was wrong." I listened to the words I once desperately wanted to hear. But they didn't fix anything. They couldn't. "You made a decision," I said quietly. "And so did I." She winced. "I know," she murmured. "I know." But understanding wasn't the same as accepting. She still didn't grasp that the door she closed behind her locked itself the moment she walked through. "I'm not who I was," I said as I rose from my seat. "I'm not the man willing to let you back into my life after everything. Not after the lies. Not after the betrayal. I turned away, but she grabbed my sleeve with shaking fingers. Please, she cried softly. I'm different. I've changed. I looked at her one last time, this woman I once loved more than I loved myself. She stood there shattered, but she was no longer the person I remembered. Those days were gone. Take care of yourself, I said gently. But I'm not anyone's second option. I walked out of that cafe and out of her life forever. She didn't come back because she loved me. She came back because what she chased fell apart. And that truth was enough. As I stepped onto the street, a strange calm washed over me. The weight I carried for so long finally lifted, dissolving into the night. I wasn't fueled by anger anymore, only clarity. She no longer had the power to hurt me. I left not out of hatred but because I finally knew how to love myself again. And sometimes that's the only closure you need. Please help me to reach 1,000 subscribers.